I'm Allan Davidson. Welcome to Systain3r. And let me introduce our two guests for today, Mark Buckley and Jelena Gjorgjeva. It's a pleasure to have you here, and let's get right into our conversation. What is regeneration, and why does it matter?
Regeneration is as old as the universe and our planet. It's at least 3.8 billion years old. And what it is, it really means it is creating the conditions that are conducive for life to thrive and flourish amid ever-changing life conditions. It's those wonderful conditions to regenerate, restore, have that abundance and intergenerational help for those who are coming after us.
And you came up with a great phrase yesterday, because you talked about a world that works for everyone. Now, how do you visualize that? How would that work? What would it look like?
Yeah, it's not a new question. It's a pretty old question. I wouldn't say it's medieval, but it's at least 70 years old. What does a world that works for everyone look like? It came up with the first person to really bring it on the stage was our Buckminster Fuller, and he played the world game or the peace game, and he did that at the World's Fair, and he did that in other locations with large groups of people from all over the world trying to answer that question. A world that works for everyone means a world that works for 100% of humanity in the shortest possible time through spontaneous cooperation without the ecological offense or disadvantage of anyone. It's really empowering all 8+ billion global citizens on this planet to be able to live an adaptive lifestyle of health and sustainability within the safe operating spaces of our planetary boundaries. And with that answer that I gave you of regeneration, always creating the conditions for life to thrive and flourish amid ever-changing life conditions. Because when we have systems or businesses or do things in a way that don't create the conditions for life to thrive and flourish amid all the crazy, changing, chaos things going on in our world, Brexit, pandemic, wars, Ukraine, Gaza, elections, and divisiveness of our world, separations, walls, borders, nations, languages, and cultures, those don't allow us to regenerate. Those don't allow us to spread our wings and flourish and do that human evolution that we're really meant to have and do while we're here on this earth.
And hopefully we'll get it back under control. Insanity. I was, a personal aside, it was just interesting to see the buckyball, big super buckyball, because I remember seeing it in Montreal.
I was just there at the biodiversity conference of the United Nations, was there last year. Mm-hmm. And so I was there in Montreal and saw it again, and it's just beautiful. But the buckyballs, they're also another set. There's actually a game with these buckyballs that is so neat. And they're actually like tops, spinning tops. The way that it works is the buckyballs are not only an architectural wonder, but it's also that design that really shows how the earth can work in other systems, more regenerative systems, more circular systems. And so it's a really, not only a great architectural feat, but it's another design feat that is really amazing.
That's a conversation for later then. Continue. To be continued. But how will Web3 help make that vision possible?
Well, we are living now in a new era that it's emerging closely. Right now it feels maybe like living in a parallel universe where we're creating the metaverse, using the technology, giving the power to the people to try to do something good. And the best benefit now, and what we need to tend to keep, is the power of the community to do something greater good using this technology. And one of those things, we can use it also for regeneration in a way. For example, we can gift the big companies or the small companies tokenizing their rewards in a form of NFT or tokens or ICOs. The reward of reducing their carbon footprint, if that is the tooltip we need to push to enroll into action and start doing something, and then also to use it to get collective and shared knowledge how they did it, so it can be applied to other similar companies, so they can adapt activities, maybe make some like manual for it, regulation. And it's only a small step in the thing that we, I think, are already maybe too late to start saving this planet. But it's only a maybe small step, but we have to use any action we can. And I think with that kind of approach, will be even a small dent or one step closer to Mark's vision, and also to the salvation of all mankind and our planet.
It's really unique. Her answer was so spot on, and what some tools are that are available. When people hear regeneration, Web3, and they're like, hear them in the same thing, they're like, well, isn't regeneration agriculture? Isn't that have to do with some kind of natural systems? That's another big thing that we need to educate the systemic view of regeneration, and that's that it's finance, regenerative finance, it's regenerative health, regenerative medicine, regenerative agriculture. It's many things that can be regenerated. It's a model that can be applied to life in general. It's principles of how we organize and handle all the things we do in a regenerative practice. So in an organization, you deal with living systems, and they need a model or framework. You can have a very capitalistic or a framework that structures finance or economics or solutions in a very capitalistic way or an extractive way, or you can do it in one where you're always restoring and regenerating your business model, your organization, for future generations, to something to last and to go on forever. So I like how the modern is tied with some really universal principles that are old.
But of course, you can have an enlightened capitalism, which is regenerative.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily, the problem is we're in exploitative capitalism.
Yeah.
Even through history, we never thought about something new, and the biggest examples of how to construct some principle or system organization or behavior we took from the nature because it was closest to us. And now we should do the same thing and maybe reconstruct what we already have. And also, what is very important, try to make it even reusable. Like reusable, recreatable, regenerative, and to be self-sustained, scalable, which the technology can help with, and also to be able to upgrade, or as it's now very popular in AI, to learn by itself, to make itself better. Doesn't have to involve AI, but we should, as our intelligence grows with all the experiences we have, trying to save ourselves, that way we should approach, because the system is living because of us. We are living beings who use it. And we get the example from the living planet that we are, which Mark said pretty beautifully. Yeah, we are one organism, the whole earth, but we should be the cure, not the cancer to it. So we have to approach this systemically to try to get into every sector, every possibility, and then to try to reuse it, to be scalable, to be regenerative, and to be collectible knowledge and generational knowledge, which I also loved that he mentioned. So it to be for generations and generations to come.
One of the things that strikes me that I keep hearing in these conversations, it's an implicit benefit of the whole Web3 thing, is it's much more collaborative. It's a much more collaborative, constructive environment than Web 1, Web 2. And if Web 2 was equally collaborative, in potential, it certainly isn't. It hasn't worked out that way. It seems to be harder to turn Web3 into that kind of centralized system. Just the very nature of it. Do you feel the same way?
Right now, honestly, I feel that it has the fabulous potential, and what we're seeing emerging to be that way. Humanity, there's always someone looking for a loophole or a way to manipulate and control as much as possible, and to gain that competitive edge, that dominance over the biggest share. And that regenerative process is one of cooperation and collaboration, the symbiosis, that if we all can have a part in it and be cooperative and collaboration, we can all benefit and have this different view and benefit from Web3. Whereas if there's just a few nodes or a few people in control, and I'm just worried that we're not there yet. I think we're on the cusp of getting there. A lot of people are still trying to figure out or implement it as well. There's not a lot of big case examples of implementation where, say, my website's all on Web3 and my business and my organization and everything that I do. There's not a lot out there saying, yep, we're there. I think it's a process, and if we can put those principles of regeneration into that, I think we'll get there and achieve it.
Yeah, I totally agree with Mark. I will just add something. I really hope that this time will be smart and not to repeat the mistakes we did before. Because I think now, especially after the pandemic and the freedom and the revolutionary spirit maybe that decentralization means to people, the collaborativeness and the willing to help, we should use that to not repeat the same mistakes and really make something beautiful, because we are starting to do it. So I really hope, and that is my biggest desire, that we strive to that utopia.
That sounds like a perfect note to end it on, unless there's something you both want to add.
Well, I think we also wanted to touch on systems a lot. Most of our world has really been functioned for ever since human civilization's been around on systems that are built up very hierarchy, very linear or siloed type of systems, not very inclusive for all of humanity. And it's also a big separation, a reductionism of humanity, a mechanization of humanity, and a separation from the natural world, or those universal. Elon Musk likes to say first principles, but those universal first principles of living systems, but also how good models on how systems work. And sometimes people get confused with systems and systemic thinking, and we're talking about control or whatever it is. There's a big unclarity around systems. And so I would like to just give a couple examples and then see how we can relate it to where we're going with regeneration, with Web3, with the things that we're doing. And that is, our planet has 5 systems: the hydrosphere, the cryosphere, the atmosphere, the biosphere, and one other. And if not one of those 5 systems of our planet control the other 4. They all work together as a system, kind of gooey in harmony. But you remember there was an atmosphere layer with the ozone issue. It still hasn't been resolved. It came pretty close, but it still exists. But it's a lot better with CFCs and that whole ozone hole layer. Well, the rest of those 4 systems try to compensate to heal the one that's damaged. Our bodies have 11 systems: nervous system, skeletal system, digestive system, on and on. 11 systems, but not one of them controls the other 10 systems of our body. They all work together almost autonomously, gooey, at the same time. But if you break a bone or have a nervous system disorder or a muscular disorder or something happens, the other 10 try to compensate. Otherwise, you die or get sick or have a disability. And in 2008, the entire world, all international organizations, WTO, United Nations, World Economic Forum, World Government, every major international organization you can think of, switched from a siloed or linear approach to solving human suffering and our global grand challenges to a systemic approach. And the first real pop-up of that was in 2018, the World Economic Forum, from Klaus Schwab's book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, said he talked about in the book transformational maps and systemic thinking. And then he popped up on the World Economic Forum's website these transformational maps showing how agriculture is tied to a web of other systems that tie to agriculture. Good health and well-being, zero hunger, all those things that are tied to agriculture, and kind of showed no matter what topic of interest was of interest to you, me, that it was tied to a web of other things. And so we're talking about Web3. We're talking about AI a lot at this event. We're talking about regeneration and quantum computing a little bit, these pioneering frontier technologies and things that are coming up that really are at the cusp of biotechnology as well, this cusp of a super cycle convergence, which is how humanity transforms from one age or epoch to another. Never before have we transitioned from one era or age without the pneumatic tire, the steam engine, the printing press, on and on. And we're at that cusp now. It's, can we do it in a systemic way? Can we do it at one that's creating the conditions that are conducive to life without mechanizing or reducing things and getting in that siloed view again? I think that's the real key to these systems. And there's one last thing to systems that ties to that I want to put out there, and then see what your other two views are, which is real important. There was a fabulous study done. It was done by NASA. It was done twice. It was done through Nature and Science by NASA. It's called the HANDY study. And the first was in 2014, and the second one was in 2018. And they asked, how many civilization frameworks have there been in our world before? When did they collapse, those civilizations? Why did they collapse? And what model were they running? What civilization framework model were they running when they collapsed? The first study in 2014 came back and it said there was more than 32 civilization frameworks in our world. They actually said there were 72 civilization framework models, but all of those funneled down to 32 core civilizations. Early antiquity, Mesopotamia, Incas, Aztecs, Mayas, Greeks, Romans, on and on to 32. And all but 5 of those 32 collapsed because of an ecological or a environmental collapse. Basic infrastructure, clean water, sanitation, food, farming, basic resources and infrastructure. That's why they collapsed. And then 5 collapsed because of disease, disruption, or displacement. So that's really interesting to know that the same problems that they have, we're actually facing now. Environmental and ecological issues, which we're dealing with quite a bit now. The second part of that is they all collapse running the exact same civilization framework model, operating system, how they operated as a civilization. And guess what? That was a hierarchy model. King, priestess, ruler, president at the top, and peasants, slaves, laborers, and farmers at the bottom. Now that's really interesting, that hierarchy model that's always failed and led to collapse. But there's one interesting extra factor to that. And we still haven't discovered what the meaning of that is. And that is, none of those peasants, slaves, laborers, and farmers at the bottom of that pyramid holding it up were indigenous to the civilization framework that was being built up. They were all taken from another culture or civilization or another place of the world to build up Egypt, Rome, Greeks, Mesopotamia, Incas, and enslaved as peasants, slaves, laborers, and farmers. They didn't enslave their own people. They took people from another tribe, another culture, another place. And in that process, those people never had buy-in. They always knew they would always be a peasant, slave, laborer, and farmer, and they didn't have a buy-in to that civilization framework, that structure. And there's a lot of glaring questions that come out of that. Is it because they knew that they would never have ownership or buy into that civilization framework that also led to the collapse of those frameworks? Because even when the civilization was built up and finished, what happened to those positions? Did they need to get rid of those people? Did those people build in some kind of a thing that made the civilization collapse? Or because it wasn't built with, those people who were building it up knew that they would never have ownership, get to live there, or enjoy their family. Their families were usually somewhere else. And that same model is being used today in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia. They don't call them peasants, slaves, and laborers and farmers anymore. They call them hospitality workers, construction workers. But they still are in a work visa. They also live in worker camps. They send their money home, Pakistan, Asia, whatever. And throughout our world, we keep repeating these bubbles or these same frameworks. And that's the definition of insanity. How do you hope to achieve different results with the same actions? And so that's a big synopsis of kind of systems and how they tie together. But the biggest systems are the civilization frameworks that we use and have in our world. And so I really think that ties into regeneration and all these other models that maybe change and be a little bit different. What do you feel?
Well, first to take you on this last one, of course you cannot expect different result doing the same actions. Even maybe sometimes it's better to not do any action. That's a difference itself. Like I'm really hoping we won't continue repeating this. And what right now the Web3 and the metaverse and the blockchain space, it's doing, it's really inclusiveness of multiracial, multi-gender. No one cares there what nationality they are, what gender they are, only skills, helpfulness, community. I really believe that this will help to layer everything on the same level and not to be hierarchy, but everyone to work on their own goods. And with the reward system, for example, in NFT and tokenizations, everyone will feel like it's something they're doing for themselves as well, because they might have ownership of something or shareholding. And when you're doing something for you, you always try to do it better. That in Turkey, there is a very good saying. Like if you get blocks of rocks and you do like this, you can make a path. But if you lay them up, you build a house. So we should be the one to build up the house that we will all live in, and not try to separate each other with discrimination, or I'm smarter than you, or I'm more powerful than you. Those are the types of mistakes that we should really take into consideration. A lot of research and science that back that up. People are researching this just to try to find what are the mistakes so we don't repeat them. So I really hope that on this level, now we really have the chance to do this small utopia. I think we'll really do it for the good of everyone.
I also like the fact that this event, Systain3r, has given everybody the buy-in. Everybody gets to participate. It's an unconference style, so everybody gets to have their voice. Everybody gets to speak. Most everybody gets to be on the podcast. Most everybody gets to prepare and help in the meals and enjoy the meals. We're not sleeping together. We're sleeping under the same roof and in the same spaces. And so it's really that buy-in into a new framework, into the system. It's that community that's being built, and it's no othering or egos. It's really about how can we come together in these new systems, dream and have a vision together to really strengthen these new systems and regeneration that we're talking about. I haven't felt once that I haven't had the buy-in or that anybody else's voice has gone under and not had the buy-in as well. And I really like that as well. And I think it's a testament that there are better systems out there that work for us all. And that's the proof that we're looking at. Everybody's like, what are the KPIs? What's the data? What's the proof? Well, if we do it, put it into action, I think you can really see it really quickly.
Couldn't agree more. And I would just put to you that if you take what you were saying about these civilizations failing ultimately, I mean, by definition, pretty much every civilization ultimately will fail. The collapse of Soviet Union was essentially similar, a rot from the inside out. People stopped fighting to preserve it. And once they stop fighting to preserve it, like any system, it eventually falls because nobody's there fighting to make it work. And its own weight brings it down. I think that was really what happened more than anything else.
Yeah.
And so hopefully these forces will indeed triumph and that regenerative effect will help. It's been a fascinating conversation, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That wraps up our conversation for today, and thank you to our guests, Mark Buckley and Jelena Gjorgjeva. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you all soon.